Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Film Fan Club show. I'm Sam Carrico, your guide through the wonderful world of film and TV, where every week feels like a new adventure, and the roller coaster is definitely on a budget, sort of like Disney's recent projects. We've got a great show lined up. We're going to be talking about House of the Dragon with John Lein and Alex McKellar in just a sec. Feel free to use the time codes to jump straight to it if you want. But first, let's catch up on the madness from D23. Yeah, Disney rolled out the red carpet for a bunch of exciting stuff. First up, the live-action Snow White adaptation. You know, the lead actress has managed to step in it more times during this press tour than the dwarves in this CGI nightmare. Seriously, are those dwarves modeled after disgruntled action figures? In a world where they can turn realistic animals into lifelike creatures, why does this look like a failed Pixar experiment? Hey, speaking of Pixar, we have Toy Story 5, where the toys plug into the modern kids' obsession with iPads. Because nothing says adventure like Woody trying to compete with an 8-year-old who can launch endless Candy Crush combos faster than he can say, "There's a snake in my boot." Oh, and seeing Woody reunited with the rest of the gang feels kind of weird, because at the end of Toy Story 4, he literally wandered off into the sunset while the rest of the gang was left behind. It felt more final than my last breakup. Well, I guess Woody's also sending mixed signals. But how about that Tron Ares sneak peek? Jared Leto from 30 Seconds to Mars is joining the cast, which is kind of ironic since Nine Inch Nails is doing the soundtrack. Man, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that meeting. Jared Leto's sitting there signing the contract to be in the movie, and he goes, "You know, I could do the music too." And the producer just goes, "That's okay." Man, Nine Inch Nails though, I can hear the soundtrack now. Tron, but make it emo. In other big news, we got a behind-the-scenes look at Andor Season 2. If this show wasn't already Star Wars' saving grace, it is now, because Season 2 will bring back Ben Mendelsohn as Krennic, the best character from the best Star Wars movie since 2005. Seriously, if you're not on the Rogue One train at this point, what are you doing? It's the film that proves you can use nostalgia without choking on your own aspirations. Thank you. Now let's shift gears. D23 wasn't the only place with sweaty nerds and overpriced merchandise recently. Last weekend, I head to the Oklahoma Comic-Con here in Tulsa. Yes, I had the pleasure of attending panels with the likes of Charles Martinet, the voice of Super Mario. The man is a legend. As I watched him from the crowd, all I could think was, this guy must be making bank, creating joy for millions, while I sit here hoping my cat doesn't break another lamp. Speaking of legends, I also attended a panel discussion with Matthew Lewis, who played Neville Longbottom in the Harry Potter films. You know, every time I see someone from that franchise, I just can't help but wonder how many of them had to dodge questions about why they weren't invited to the latest reunion special. Sorry, Matthew, we decided to go with the actors who played goblins this time. But let's not forget the icing on the cake. I got to chat with Scott Innes, the voice of Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. That's right, a man who has simultaneously given our childhoods and our nightmares a voice. It was a blast. We actually have a clip of him sharing a little thought about his experience as Scooby. Let's roll that.
Here we are, yeah.
Right here.
That's right, his childhood, my job, his childhood.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo.
Wow, thank you, Scott. Hearing that made me feel like a kid who just found out Santa isn't real. Totally crushed, but at least I still get presents. Your Scooby voice is legendary, while I'm still trying to perfect my impression of a bag of chips opening at midnight. Alright, we've got a great show for you guys lined up. Let's bring in John Lein and Alex McKellar to get right to our discussion of House of the Dragon Season 2. Alright, let's welcome tonight's guests. Two guests returning from the Mission Matinee podcast, which is part of the Film Fan Club network of podcasts. John Lein, Alex McKellar, back again. How are you guys?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic, just talking about in the monologue, got to have a lot of fun at Oklahoma Comic-Con, meet the voice actor of Scooby-Doo, but also as a segue, I kind of want to ask you guys what your favorite animated Scooby-Doo movie is, because I got to have him sign mine, is the Cyber Chase, Scooby-Doo in the Cyber Chase. He was thrilled, you could tell. He was very thrilled to see me. So I just want to ask what your guys' favorite animated Scooby-Doo movie is.
Alex?
Oh yeah, Zombie Island. It's a banger.
I knew that mine was a dark horse because a lot of people say, well, like objectively speaking, Zombie Island is probably the best. But I don't know. Cyber Chase I thought was so fun. It's so tonally different.
Yeah, I have like I remember bits and pieces of Cyber Chase, but like Zombie Island was like one of those VHSs that I basically wore to the bone as a kid. So it's just like most of that movie's just still in my brain. I remember I took it to like a show and tell in school for like Halloween, and then the teacher just like let us watch it, and it was rad.
That's a win.
Yeah, I was like, that's how it works, guys. Movies are magic.
And maybe the reason I don't have Zombie Island edging Cyber Chase is because it did scare me as a kid. I remember the very first time I ever watched it. I still remember because I had to turn it off at the end. The spoilers, if you haven't seen Zombie Island, but at the end, the gang is in peril with voodoo dolls. It looks like they might not make it out. As a kid, I was like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen before. This is pivotal. This is game-changing for the franchise. And Scott Innes was a big part of that. Great choice. John, Scott Innes was also in the live action the live action movie, but he played, I believe, Scrappy. I don't know if he was the voice of Scooby, but I know for sure he was the voice of Scrappy in the live action movie. Do you have any memories of that? I forget sometimes, John, you're a little bit older than
me. Yeah, I'm a little older. My favorite animated Scooby-Doo was 13 Ghosts.
Okay.
Tony Shalhoub is in it, and it's got the glass house.
That one. Yeah.
I think Matthew Lillard gets cut in half by a door. It's a pretty cool movie.
The 13th Ghost? Is that the recent one? Scooby-Doo and the 13th Ghost?
No, I was thinking of a dumb joke. There is an animated Scooby-Doo show called Scooby-Doo and the 13th Ghost, but there's also a horror movie called The 13th Ghost.
That's good.
I was just playing.
What is happening? I was
right
like,
over my head.
Voice, and I was like, what am I thinking of?
What year did the 13th Ghost come out with Matthew Lillard and Tony Shalhoub?
2001.
I'm glad I let in by being like, John, you're a little bit older than me, right?
I mean, I didn't really watch much Scooby-Doo as a kid.
He never could tell where he was.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about House of the Dragon Season 2. Of course, we did talk about House of the Dragon Season 1 a couple years ago. It was 2022 when that came out. And we pitted it against Rings of Power. Programming note, we are intending at this point to talk about Rings of Power Season 2. But of course, they didn't. They knew better than to release them at the same time this time. So, of course, that'll have to come in a separate episode down the line. House of the Dragon Season 2, though, I just rewatched Game of Thrones Season 1 through 8 this year, and then I rewatched House of the Dragon Season 1. As we established in the last episode where we talked about it, I'm a big fan of this franchise. Of course, Game of Thrones Season 5 through 8 is horrible, but, I'm no stranger to hating my favorite franchise.
We just got to know why.
Yeah. I just rewatched that video essay today. It's fantastic. It's my best work. So, House of the Dragon Season 1, I really enjoyed. Guys, do you want to remind the audience what you thought about House of the Dragon Season 1? Maybe talk about a little bit. Did you like Game of Thrones as well, House of the Dragon Season 1? But the big question, as I throw to you, John, is Season 2 worse? I've seen a lot of discussion online of being like, oh man, Season 2 of House of the Dragon is not as good as Season 1. What do you think?
I haven't rewatched Season 1 since we reviewed it, so it's maybe not super fresh in my memory, but I remember enjoying it, and I enjoyed this season, so I probably wouldn't say that it's worse. Yeah. They're probably both equally good.
I agree. I think there's a lot of, and I feel so weird not being a hater. I feel like a cheerleader almost for House of the Dragon. Oh, fuck, I forgot to put up my flag. I have a Targaryen flag over off screen. But it's weird to not hate things. I really enjoyed Season 2. I thought it was right in the line with Season 1. Alex, though, you want to be the tiebreaker? No, that doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, I was like, I remember I enjoyed Season 1. I don't have like super strong feelings about it, like it's funny because I think it was like a better show than Rings of Power, but I sort of spent more time thinking about Rings of Power, wondering what they might do, caring about that universe. So like Rings of Power, like some of that sticks in my mind more, but like that's more just like of how I interacted with the two shows as opposed to like it being better than House of the Dragon. And then this season I really enjoyed. I was burned by Game of Thrones, so it is just a little bit weird getting back into this universe, and especially as a prequel to like lead into a show that I'm like, yeah, I don't want to watch that again. I mean, we can get into it more, but again, as it's a standalone piece of television, like this season I thought was solid. Maybe like a tiny bit, like the fact that like we were jumping through time in season one, like sort of hitting like the big events, and then now we're sort of like we were just like teetering on the edge of the all-out battles and all of that stuff. So it's like a lot of just sort of like, is it gonna fall into the battles? What's gonna happen? You know, sort of moments of flare up, not as much like big, bombastic, exciting stuff, but a lot of good character stuff. I could see it being like maybe a little more boring than season one because of that, but I don't think that like makes it worse than season one. You know what I mean? This one definitely feels like they are trying to tell a complete story, and we are in a chapter that's more putting the pieces on the board, setting things up, showing that like drama, and as we saw, like focusing back on that like politics with like stuff with the small folk and all those things, and all that I really enjoyed.
I love politics. I love the politics of the prequels. I love the politics of Game of Thrones. And whenever Game of Thrones moved away to the White Walker stuff, I thought that it got worse. And whenever I rewatched Game of Thrones, I still think the ending is bad. I don't know how I feel about the story decision to have Daenerys turn evil. Since that happened, though, it does raise the stakes, I think. This being a prequel, I don't remember exactly. I mean, I guess they do spoil the ending to House of the Dragon in Game of Thrones. I don't remember that scene, even though I just rewatched it. I don't pay attention to things. But it makes the stakes for where Rhaenyra is going to go, knowing where Daenerys goes. Where is Rhaenyra going to go makes the stakes for that much higher for me. So I think even though the ending to Game of Thrones is bad, handled poorly, just knowing that fact that Daenerys goes evil with the intention of saving everybody, but she turns evil. I liked that for Rhaenyra's arc. It makes me, even in those smaller scenes, those lower stakes scenes, it still makes the stakes even higher. And you touched on it being slower, and I appreciate you. Let's interrogate why people thought it wasn't as good as season one. Season one is a lot of big events happening. I understand that, but I thought season two, I want to call the pacing is very deliberate. I feel like they knew what they were doing with spending so much time with certain storylines and having a lot of lulls between the action. And my point on that, but I have it now, I'll probably come back to it later, is like Game of Thrones, some of the best seasons of Game of Thrones is just, I thought, sitting around talking. So I don't know. John, what do you think of that? Do I make a good point? Am I scatterbrained?
I think that the idea that we need big action scenes for a show to be interesting or good is
ludicrous.
Incorrect. I think characters often behave most interestingly when they're not on a huge battlefield, and we still get some little like Cole's whole thing of how he like sees the dragons on the battlefield because there is a big battle.
Yeah. Episode 4. How can you say there's no action in this when you got episode 4? Oh my god!
And then all the stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff happening without necessarily having like armies in the field, kind of stuff.
So we maintain as a panel that this season has maintained the quality from what we can remember. From me, my memory of like a month ago, but your guys' memory of 2 years ago. From what we can remember, this season has maintained the quality of season 1, which was good. I think so. Okay, everybody's crazy. I
also like, to be fair to all of these internet people, I don't know what they thought was bad about this season compared to season 1. I just made a guess at action. So I don't know what they were saying. I don't know why people.
A lot of people didn't like the deliberate pacing of this season.
A lot
of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened in season 1, and we'll get there. But the ending of this season, people hated. I don't want to give my cards away, but they're wrong for hating it, and I'll talk about why as we get towards the finale. I have a lot of bullet points. I took some notes, which is something I haven't done in a year. Taking notes for an episode, so we're going to talk about some of these notes that I have. This is a big thing. The new opening titles sequence. I loved it compared to the first seasons was good. I was like, all right, why aren't we, if we're taking the theme, which I love taking the theme from Game of Thrones, we're taking the theme, why not just do the map again. I guess it would just be King's Landing the whole time, but whatever.
Mm.
I like this season too. This kind of fulfills the promise of giving us a new opening title sequence, but still fitting with that theme song. I really love the opening title sequence. I have written down here, it changes over the course of the season, depicting the events of what happens in this season, and it changes in like a propaganda kind of way with what happens with Aegon. We'll talk a little bit about that more in detail. But what happens, it shows the propagandized version of these events, kind of like the book, the Fire and Blood book is kind of a retelling from an unreliable narrator's perspective. I really like that. Alex, what'd you think of the changing opening title sequence, how it's different?
Well, I actually, apologies, didn't notice that it was different tapestries each time. Sort of like half watched it here and there. Like I watched it for the first episode and I was like, oh, that's cool. That looks really nice. I like, I like a good, interesting visuals. And because, it's just sort of random-y events going on, then later on, like I noticed some things and I was like, oh, was that always in it? I don't know. And so that's cool to know that it was kind of evolving and updating like that. Although I was thinking, you've already opened the barn door with bringing up that we're mission heads. I just, got into the Dead Reckoning soundtrack again recently, just as like doing some stuff, listening to that. And like it hit me as I was going through thinking about this. I was like, man, like the Mission Impossible theme is iconic, but I love how all of these movies have like done their own little spin on it. My favorites being the tweaks that Lord Balfe has done with 6 and 7, the bongos and then the snare drums. And I'm just like, House of the Dragon, just like tweak the theme a little bit, man. Be a little bit different, like it could still be there and it could still slap.
It changed,
but like
you gotta have continuity, but also the appearance of the sound of continuity, but the appearance of change. There you go.
Yeah, but like they've managed to do that in all forms of media. So House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones is worse than the Mission Impossible franchise in probably all ways, but this is at least one.
I enjoy having both. I'm not taking that bait. That was red meat, and I'm not fighting. Opening title sequence, I love it. It's better than season 1, right?
It's definitely better than like the bloody castle thing. Whatever season 1 was doing, the tapestry stuff absolutely better.
Yes, John, do you agree?
I didn't watch them. I skipped to the stuff that was important.
God, I hate you so much.
I got 8 episodes of House of the Dragon to watch. I gotta get through this.
So let's talk about some characters and some storylines. I've kind of grouped them together. I don't know if the groups will always work, so you'll kind of forgive me if it doesn't. But I have Alicent and Helaena. They kind of start the season together in a way, and they kind of end the season together in a way. What did you think? There's a lot of things I have in parentheses here. Blood and cheese. That's a big thing in the books. I'm not a books head. I just enjoy so I'm told that's a big thing and they fucked it up. Okay. I don't know how you fuck up a kid getting, I don't know. I liked the big surprising first episode. And I liked where Alicent and Helena's storylines went over the course of the season. I think Olivia Cooke is a fantastic actress. I'd love to meet her someday. I don't have a lot more to say. We'll get more in there, but I'm going to toss to you, John. What do you think?
About the first episode?
No, we could talk about their storylines as a whole. I was just kind of going over the highlights of their storylines, blood and cheese, and then where they end up, of course.
I like it. Alicent has been interesting because, she gets pushed out of power, basically, but she's allowed to stay there, and she goes, I don't want to anymore, actually. And she goes off into the woods and and resolves that she just wants to leave. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. Get the fuck out of King's Landing. And then Helaena, we got spoilers. We don't have the little spoiler banner.
No, we could do. Yeah, that's a good time. I think we mentioned that we liked the show, so we're going to recommend that people watch it. If you haven't seen it yet,
if you haven't watched it, watch it. And now we're going to spoil everything that happened. Yeah. So if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to.
All right. So, John, let's hear it.
The scene where the goons decapitate Helena's child, and they make her pick which one, and then because they can't tell which is the boy and which is the girl, and they think they're supposed to decapitate a boy child, and so make her point out which one is the boy, and then they have that little interaction where one of them is like, "Oh, she'd never give up a boy so fast," and the other one's like, "No, she tell true," and then they cut the head off. Is like, that scene is crazy. She does a really great job as an actress and as a character in that
Cockney accent. Holy shit, that was awesome.
It was good.
I don't know if they're actually Cockney.
Oh, my Shaggy impression.
Hold on, guys, hold on.
Stop everything.
Everyone, back to one. We just finished the monologue. All right, Sam, take it.
I didn't do this earlier. I didn't do this for Scott Innes either, but I wanted to. He also voiced Shaggy in addition to Scrappy and Scooby, and I wanted to show him my Shaggy impression. Do you guys remember the Thanos versus Shaggy memes that were going around like in 2017, 2018, 2019? There's like a big thing like, what if Shaggy was super powerful? LOL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, one of the memes was like, not bad, Thanos man. You made me use 10% of my power. That's it. That's how he sounds.
That was good.
All
right, so cut that back to earlier in the episode. Just like splice it right in, and then
no, I'm not doing that. That's
John was doing that.
No, but
we can cut this part out.
All right. Blood and cheese. Yeah. And then they end up. I like the scene where Olivia Cook goes on a little walk in the woods. You talked about that. It was good. It was well acted. I was like, man, she's killing it. She's a great actress. She looks 29.
I believe she was in the woods.
Yeah. She looks 29 years old. So when you put her next to Helaena, it's like, what the hell is happening here? Like I don't buy them as mother and daughter, but I wouldn't sacrifice that to get. I wouldn't want them to fire Olivia Cook. Come on. Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
And I like how they Alicent and Rhaenys. I'm gonna butcher these character names this whole time.
Rhaenyra, is that where you're going for the main?
The queen lady, the one in charge of the other side.
Rhaenyra.
They have that little like cross path thing, you know, where the queen goes to King's Landing to try and talk to Alicent to try and rein in the incoming warfare, and Alicent's like, no, it's too late. We're done. This is happening. And then the queen leaves, and then at the end of the season, Alicent is like, oh, that was maybe the wrong call. I need to go to her now. And then they swap places, kind of.
Alicent's arc is so well done, I thought, this season. Alex, what did you think? I mean, I just love that scene. There's one moment where, like, after she gets iced out of the small council meeting, she's still there,
Yeah, I know.
The camera's zooming in on her, everybody's talking around her, and her own son's like, yeah.
Big bro's like, I don't want my mom around.
No. So,
yeah, and then she's like, damn. I mean, jumping around, just like a bunch of those classic, like, there are moments where the characters like kind of do the right thing, and then there's moments where they're all like pieces of shit, and it just like there's sort of like continuing like passes with like people are giving each other opportunities, which I enjoyed. Like there was a decent balance of like good communication and then people in a spot where they were unwilling to accept like olive branches, But then, especially jumping ahead to when, because like it makes sense why Alicent, like the grandchild was just freaking whacked because these guys are goobers and Daemon's nuts, and he's just like, we'll just get some people in there and we'll just kill them and it'll go really well. And then they have nothing to go on except blonde hair and a boy, and so that's like we talked about, they messed that up.
Yeah, I think Yeah, I think that's why people were upset about. I guess I can't remember what the people like fans were like. The blood and cheese in the books was better. I don't know.
Like in the books, are they sent to kill the child, or is it?
Should have. This is one of those things where my gap is like I have no idea.
Also, man, blood and cheese. It's just a silly sounding name to me.
I'm hate
not taking it seriously. Yeah, it's like that. I remember I was in a movie theater one time, and a trailer came on for like werewolves and vampires or something on like a train somewhere. Yeah. And then the announcer voice comes on and the name of the movie was Blood and Chocolate. And then I just laughed. I was like, I can't take this seriously as a thing. Why would you call your thing Blood and Chocolate? Very silly thing.
Flowers and Chocolate was the name of a fictional movie in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. that they took the two twins to go watch in Flowers and Chocolate and the Sweet Life of Zack and
Oh
Cody.
yeah, if that was like a rom-com, that name makes sense.
Yeah,
If you're making a werewolf vampire movie, Blood and Chocolate just makes me laugh, as opposed to yeah.
We have a lot more to go, but
Yes.
John kind of teed me up for this earlier. Is Criston Cole the best or the worst character in the series? Because he has a fantastic monologue in the finale that kind of sums up his whole deal, and it's wonderfully acted, I thought.
Oh yeah, he's killing this performance, but like his whole like, oh look at me, I've actually seen battle, and now I'm like stoic and poetic about things. I'm like, cool, dude, whatever.
Not only that, but he's been used up by these women. It's like, I've been through a bad breakup or two. It's like, man, bro, I get it. He feels used up by these women and had all of his bits of character rounded out, and now he's left and he's like, what am I? It's very sad.
Well, he's been used up by all the kings and shit too. I mean, he's walking around having to keep quiet about the fact that the reality of that battle and Aegon's injuries are that. Wait.
That's next.
Yeah, Aegon. You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
And then who's the other one?
King, bro. Aemond is big, bro.
Aemond's big, bro.
Big murder, bro. Yeah.
So Cole watched Aemond basically roast his brother, and then come back to the city and be like, oh, he got injured killing a bad guy dragon. He's really awesome. And he has to keep quiet about it. And at the same time, he's finally watched dragons roast people. Like, that would be traumatic as shit.
I think it's a combination of those things. I think it's his idea of duty and honor has been sullied by lots of people, but also his idea of relationships and commitments and stuff have been sullied, particularly by our two protagonists in the show. And there's a lot more we're going to talk about with the gender roles in this show. We'll talk about it in a second. Before we get there, I like Criston Cole, though. I guess I got to say, I think he's a despicable character, but I think he's a very well written, well developed character. I'm not condoning his actions. I'm just saying I believe that this character got here, and I think that's very powerful. I thought it was very good.
Like it's like his acting is great. Like the guy played him, it's great. It is well written. And I do like that. Again, we're interrogating like these, like, so we have these big structures that sort of like force us to do these things. We have these like weird made up rules, like, oh, the gold cloaks can't take on relations, they have to be loyal to Crown and all that above all else, sort of thing. Just like, not like actually thinking through what it is to be a human being and then having to watch a human beings try to navigate being a human being with a bunch of rigid, archaic structures. But also, Cole is just a piece of shit, man. He gets caught, and then he goes and he punks that twin for having a dirty cloak, and then sends him to die just to like throw off the stank of his own shame, And he does so many horrific things, and then he sees like, oh yeah, these things that I've been doing can lead to like real world violence, and then he's like, I'm gonna get poetic and reflective. I'm like, whatever, man. Like, you've been messing up and knowing it was messed up, feeling bad about it, continuing to mess up, and now you're going to give me a weird monologue.
I don't think he's asking for forgiveness.
I don't think he was either.
He says, I have no ideology. I just have this. And then like gestures to his sword. I rewatched it yesterday. It's a fantastic scene.
I mean, he's not asking for forgiveness, but he's rationalizing himself by saying all men fuck up and are tainted by sin, and so I don't really.
I guess it is a rationalization, but I see it, and I'm just like, this is just a guy who's so disillusioned with everything, like that. He's not. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. I wonder what his motive is since he's talking to another person or to himself. He's rationalizing it, or if he's just.
I think he's just rational.
He's like, man, there's nothing good in this world. What is? That's a line from a movie. I'll get there. Alex, what were we gonna say?
I do agree. It's like for me, it felt more rationalizing than like trying to gain sympathy from like the audience or anyone else. But it's just, I don't know. Maybe it was just the moment I watched it where I was just like, bro, like you've been stuck in these structures for so long, and I get, you're sort of now hitting this moment, but also it's kind of one of those things where I was like, this, like it makes sense for the character, but also I found it like like the performance of it was really good. I just felt like I was like, I don't know, we could have had like a better critique of the systems, but maybe again, this is just saw it once, kind of my gut feeling on this off the dome.
It was Batman versus Superman. As Superman is blackmailed to go kill Batman by Lex Luthor, he is telling Lois Lane that what he's about to go do. As he's leaving, he flies away and says, "No one stays good in this world," and then somberly flies off to go kill Batman. It's a great movie.
There's an overarching theme in this season of Game of Thrones of like, I don't know if it's a theme. They've mentioned it a couple times where like there's been peace for so long that all these people that are kind of like revved up for war have never actually experienced anything like that, and so they're just they've got like these romanticized ideals of what it'll mean to be on the battlefield and duty and honor and all that kind of stuff. And like a couple of them now have seen action and gone, "Oh,
yeah,
wow, that fucking blew." Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how that thread in those characters kind of like develops.
Let's talk about Big Bro, Little Bro, Aemond and Aegon. I have a couple things here. We can take it one by one, though, so don't feel like you need to speed through these. But I have on one row, I have Aemond and Aegon. There's kind of two different notes. So we'll just go Aemond and Aegon, and then let's talk a little bit about episode 4. I want to highlight how much of a spectacle episode 4, the big finale, the big dragon fight at the end of that episode was. It was like, it was. I mean, I don't want to sound like a fanboy here, but like it was cinematic. It was very well done. I liked it a lot. Dragons looked pretty realistic. The battle tactics were like, it was cool and interesting. It was dynamic. The way they shot it was really cool. The different character dynamics that were established, between Aemond and Aegon over the course of those, you knew something was going to happen between Aemond. The way that they were just highlighting how humiliated he felt over the course of not only the series but this season particularly. His scenes with the brothel and whatnot, and that whole dynamic there, kind of Homelander vibes, we talked about the boys last week. But it was just a spectacle of a battle. I really liked it. John, what did you think about that battle, but also the Aemond-Aegon dynamic over the course of the season? Of course, ends in a very different place from which it began.
The battle itself was really cool. I liked Jesus, we talked about him. The guy we just talked about, Criston Cole. His interactions with Alicent's brother were really interesting, like both leading up to the battle and after. Like it created a little cool dynamic for those two side characters, basically. The dragon fight was interesting and cool. So that right before the fight, the queen is like, I have to go with my dragon and fight this battle. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. You got to go.
Yeah.
It turns out to be a trap.
Well, did you maintain our text conversation? I wish I had it pulled up. Yeah, we were texting as you were watching that, and you were like, yeah, she should go do this. And I was like, should she though? And you're like, no, she should. And then you watched the episode, and I think did you maintain that she should have still gone? And
yeah,
like,
I did.
She would have died. I thought the episode showed very clearly that she would have died.
There's like 3 points in the battle where the lady that goes,
Rhaenys. You want to call Rhaenyra Rhaenys every time, but it's actually Rhaenys who goes.
That's right. Rhaenys flies her dragon there instead. And there's like 3 moments in the battle where she's like accomplished something and has the opportunity to leave and goes, no, I have to get more out of this. I have to like kill Aemond now because he's there, and like I have to win the battle. So I think that if Rhaenyra had gone, she might have left at a different time and not gone back to try and kill him.
I don't think she would have been. I think she would have been even less even-handed. I think she would have been even more hot-headed during the fight, and she would have definitely gotten herself killed. Alex settled this argument. Should Rhaenyra have gone to the battle, and would she have died? She would have died, obviously.
I mean, I don't know if she would have died. Who knows, man? That's an alternate dimension we don't have access to. This is just headcanon shit. But she probably would have saved the day, and there would have been peace in the realm. So she should have gone. John's right. But the actual battle, the thing that happened was that was dope. I do like that like Lil King Bro burns Big Bro in the brothel, and then Big Bro fucking real burns Lil Bro.
Yeah.
That was a fun bit. Like let your brother, who is a piece of shit, like have a girl. Like why would you know that this guy loves murdering and then be like, ha ha ha, you have a favorite, idiot. And,
Well, he would never kill the king.
Right, I know. It's just like, again, like those, like that's just Alex being like that. I like it makes sense for the characters and all that. It was just funny, and then obviously that went down. I also like that little King Bro Aegon is like pissed that like they're doing war without him, like his brother, and he thought like Cole was kind of cool. They're doing war without him. They're not telling him. They're just doing stuff because the High Council wants to do all this stuff. It's a bunch of olds not wanting to do fun war. And he like goes to his mom and he's like, Mom, they're leaving me out. They don't respect me. And she's like, yeah, because you're a fucking idiot and you should be paying attention to your elders.
That was a great scene. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, I get like you're his mom and also you're trying to like temper this king, but also he's the king and can do whatever. So it just seemed very silly for him to like be on the verge of having more of a mother-son moment than a king advisor moment, and she just like smacks him, and then of course he just gets hammered. He's pissed, as my notes as a bit said, and flies out there, and he begins to ruin the trap that they set, and then just gets wrecked. And his own brother's like, yeah, I don't care. I'll kill this guy, and I'll probably be king. That'll be rad, and then I can do more war, and it'll be great. So yeah, like all of those. Like those dynamics, like again, like these like little dominoes of like little character interactions hitting each other to lead to this moment. And then like sort of on the other side of the battle, like the small council is like just trying to get Rhaenyra like just go ham with the dragons you have. Like just burninate, man. Like we got this firepower, just go out there and wreck. And they're like, no, we don't want to do needless death. You know what I mean? So it's sort of they're slowly being forced into, and again, like John pointed out, we got a bunch of people that like are giving advice about war that like haven't been in a war, you know, and we're sort of having those weird moments of like, what is the best strategy? What's going on? You know, you got the people that want to go to war for the valor, for the stories and all that stuff. And then the other people who are like, well, the best way to just get power is to just like scorched earth policy build up afterwards sort of thing. And so yeah, like again, it not only like for themes of the season, like but also cinematically, like it was a good sort of action middle of the season point in multiple ways. And again, you know, to touch on with like what leads into Cole's arc, like yeah, fully seeing the just utter violence of dragon warfare. You know, like this isn't just, you know, people going out fighting with swords, you know, some sense of like ability to die honorably, you know, nobly. Like no, at a certain point, like nobody on here matters. Both sides are going to be fucked up by this, and it's just like brutality and violence on like a unprecedented scale. So yeah, it was like it was a really good episode.
John, was it you who, when that happened, you're like, yeah, like dragons is a metaphor for nuclear weapons, like full on kind of, and that scene speaks to it the most. Daemon at Harrenhal. This is a big topic of discussion. People are like, why were we spending so much time at Harrenhal? It's so annoying.
People didn't like Harrenhal?
I like it.
Yeah.
I did not. Again, I'm on the other side of. I'm on the side of liking most things.
Spike the camera, John.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, Harrenhal is awesome. Every potential holder of the Iron Throne should spend like a month-long break in Harrenhal being haunted by ghosts about why they're dicks. It's fantastic.
I thought it was great. You get to bring back Millie Alcock. You get to bring back Paddy Considine. Oh my God, as half dead. Well, dead because he's a ghost, but then also half dead looking Viserys. It's just fantastic. It's an amazing scene where he pulls off the "Was it worth it, Daemon?" And then the multiple scenes with Millie Alcock. You should always give her work. I loved Harrenhal, John. Just to be clear, but the straw men didn't.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to people viewing your show that didn't like Harrenhal. I was
Alex?
telling them.
It was
better.
It was funny. Oh, I really enjoyed it. One, it's like I love Matt Smith, but it was like almost every episode I'm still going through that. Oh, you're my favorite doctor, but then I have to remember that you're Daemon. And I would always like fall in at some point to him being Daemon. I just like there's always a bit, like especially when he would like stand and look at people with that same kind of crook, but instead of like building them up or whatever, he was like, listen, child, your uncle's gonna die. If I can need you on my side, just doing like dastardly shit.
Yeah.
But it
Shout
was
out to
then,
Lord Oscar.
yeah, it was then very funny when I was like skimming Wikipedia, where I was like, oh yeah, he just kind of goes to a castle and then just loses his mind for the whole season.
It's
So,
a great season.
yeah, like a zoom out, it is kind of like Daemon got stuck in a cul-de-sac. It was very good and like important, but like broad, zoomed out, quick read. Like in my own notes, it's just like Daemon's still there, still going insane. All right, next point. Like
Okay. Well,
like,
about that, and I'm not about
yeah.
not you, but again, using that as a
Mhm.
point to talk about a larger talking point that I've seen. Again, people are like, the season is slow in part because we don't do anything with Daemon's character, and I think character development is doing stuff. Character development is stuff happening, and I hate that
anything, they were doing the most with
yes,
him.
yes, yes, especially considering where you end his character this season.
Yeah.
And by the time you end his character that way, like they set it up well. It's kind of like, what is he going to do? Will he? Won't he? Kind of thing. And then it can go either way logically. And then at the end, whenever he chooses, of course, we're in spoiler discussion now. So whenever he chooses to support Rhaenyra, I thought it was so well done, and I bought that character change, and I bought that's where he is now. Of course, seeing the Song of Ice and Fire told to him now was cool too. I liked the Daemon stuff happening to him this season. Also, shout out to Lord Oscar Tully. I said that. Shout out to Sir.
Big ups.
Yes.
Yeah.
The good great supporting cast. Go ahead.
Big
John.
ups to these people.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted real fast, and then we can throw it back to John.
Yes.
Like in my notes for the final bit of episode 8 with David touches a tree. We get a preview of Game of Thrones, a show that it did poorly. Strange move, but whatever. And then Star Wars joke, ? Because I figured we could connect something there. And then Daemon is like, fuck, I'm not the main character, and decides to be chill and help Rhaenyra. He's like, oh, I'm a piece of the bigger story. I gotta be chill. And I was like, this is very funny, but also like, well done. Like, it was good. I had a great time. Just zoom out just enough, and I was like,
the Song of Ice and Fire stuff in season 1 bothered me because I didn't like the ending to Game of Thrones. The Song of Ice and Fire stuff in season 2 for some reason doesn't bother me as much because I guess I trust that this show is better. So it has a little bit less of a bad taste. Like it's not so rich, the bad taste in my mouth.
Sort of like, I feel like the way they were sprinkling that stuff in a bit was good. Like I get to cut over to like that earlier conversation with Alicent where Rhaenyra realizes what she heard King how do you say his name? Viserys. Thank you. What he says and realize he's like, oh no. You just didn't know about the Song of Ice and Fire. He wasn't talking about your son. I was like, damn, that's wild. And also, bro should have trusted his woman. But whatever. But yeah, so then to get like that part, it being used there, I thought was really good. It was like only the moment when I saw Daenerys and the baby dragons where I was like, oh, right, this is leading into a show that I did not like the ending of. So yeah. But the rest of it, I thought, again, like well handled. I'm enjoying the show. It's just, it is funny.
The small folk. Let's talk about Corlys and his bastards. That kind of, I don't know which one is the best order to go in, but yeah, let's go with Corlys and his bastards next. I like the storyline. I like the one with the one dragon rider that becomes the rider for Sea Smoke. And then I like the other one where he tries to get his brother and his other bastard to bring him into the fold, and he just gets a dressing down from him, his son. I thought that was a great monologue, or his bastard. It's in the finale, I want to say, where he tries to bring him out, and he's like, so I'll work for you but forgive me if I refuse your help. And I'm just like, fuck, it was really good. Both like fantastic performances, but also giving a lot of characterization to this guy who I didn't care about before I met him this season. John?
Both the whole brothers are cool. I like their different approach. They're like different responses to the situation of being bastards to a noble that just doesn't acknowledge them. I kept every time Corlys was having an interaction with one of them, I would just think, man, it would be weird as fuck to have a kid that you just couldn't acknowledge, but that was also doing things that were good enough to deserve acknowledging. So you have to have all those conversations and be like, you did me proud, boy, but without saying you did me proud, boy. It's interesting.
There's that scene where his the first bastard, the bastard with hair, the one he gets to ride the dragon, and he like doesn't say any like I'm proud of you, son, but he's just like well done or something like that, like a very subtle like oh good job, you know. And then I watched the inside the episode, and actors talk about how that's like a subtle. I'm like oh yeah, I did pick up on that. Thank you for pointing it out, actors. It was good. It's good stuff.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Alex, did you like Corlys?
Yeah, I mean, again, it was I thought it was well done, like for Corlys' character, because like, you know, he loses like multiple children the season before.
Yeah, his daughter and son last season.
Yeah, so that's I was just trying to make sure I remembered that right. And so let's like you have this guy that, you know, a long time ago, you know, was unfaithful as bastards out there, you know, that I don't think we met either one of them in season one, right?
No, I don't believe
okay. That's okay, just making sure. But so you get him going through this, having lost children, and now we have these bastard children, and one of them, I don't know, I don't remember if it's like fully described that he knew who he like was at the time. I'm sure he probably did, but like saved his life essentially, like pulled him out of the wreckage, you know. And so now you're getting all of this weird stuff, and so you got an older guy sort of reflecting on his life and existence, you know, having a season where he's like recovering, his ship's being repaired, so a lot of sort of just like downtime, you know, at Dragon's Reach, as you know, the rest of his fleet is doing the blockade. And again, I like the two brothers like sort of different like takes on how that relationship should be handled, you know, like the younger one who becomes a dragon rider being like, oh, you should get more, like he'll acknowledge us now, you saved his life, and he's just like, no, I don't want that, like I have a job I want to do, I want to do a good job, you know. And then of course that culminating in that moment where like yeah, like a little bit too little too late, and we'll see, maybe it'll go somewhere else, but I was just so happy for, I think that one was Alan, the no-haired one. Yes, Alan and Adam again. But like him just being able to tell, you know, his dad who was just gone, unhelpful when they were kids, all of this stuff, who now, because everyone else in his family's died, like, oh, I guess I'll go check on my spare children.
Mouse.
Yeah. Just yeah, like just be like, no, dude, like I care about my job. I'm gonna do a good job, but like fuck you. Like don't try and help me with this. You know what I mean? Like this is weird. You don't get to just walk back into my life because your family died and now you want to like find this connection. So I thought it was really strong, and I hope that the like that stuff continues forward. And I thought Corlys, like just all of his stuff, you know, again, like having like he talks about, he's like all of the stuff I did for myself, you know, and now names his ship like the queen who wasn't, you know, like that stuff. Yeah, like it was good, but it's also like, man, again, just like after everything's gone bad, you're like, oh yeah, other people in my life exist. Maybe I shouldn't be as self-centered. You know,
the nature of
it's just like, yeah,
not me. I'm always
devastating. But yeah, like I thought all of that was really good.
I can never fail other people. I can only be failed. That's the facts. John, the small folk, this is one of my favorite storylines, and I knew that it was going to get a big payoff because they spent so much time on the small folk this season. Alex, I believe you kind of touched on it a little bit, the boats, the sending food, and the economic impact of this war on the small folk, and then using the small folk kind of as our POV, like to kind of see what this would be like for the for them, your average person. John, I really liked how it turned out, and then turning the bastards, going off of what we're talking about, Corlys and his bastards, turning the small folk and the bastards amongst them into dragon riders. That whole season-long arc, what did you think of it? I really liked it. That payoff I thought was so good. I have payoffs written right here.
All the stuff with the small folk is pretty good. I mean, they do a lot of characters thinking about and considering, oh, okay, we got to keep the small folk happy, but also sometimes they're like, fuck the small folk. I'm a little bummed that the two small folk perspective characters that we had in King's Landing both ended up being bastard Targaryens that have the right kind of blood to allow them to fly dragons. Like,
Yeah,
I
man.
want there to be a thing where like somebody gets a dragon that we know for certain is in no way a Targaryen, and they have to like lie and pretend that it's a Targaryen, because like Jace's whole thing where any bastard lowborn dick can be a dragon rider, then by extension that means anybody can be king, and that's a problem. We can't let these bastards be dragon riders because it delegitimizes the entire concept of blood, like heirship, kind of like a natural proclivity for leading. They don't really do anything to address that. Once Jace brings it up, Rhaenyra just kind of goes, "We're in a war. We need dragon riders. Sorry, but."
Well, it's really the last 2 episodes of the season.
Mhm.
There's so much setup for season 3 going on, and I don't know. Did you say that you wish that it didn't depend on your blood to be a dragon rider?
I mean, okay, so we talked about
It's not like the Force, Like, I'm very much in favor of that Force. Just to be clear.
So we don't know if it's like the Force or not, because
What if it's the
maybe
Metachlorians in the Targaryen bloodline?
Right,
yeah,
right.
maybe.
We don't know.
Yeah, that
They
can
need to
communicate with
explain
dragons.
They
yeah.
need to explain this in House of the Dragon season 3.
Yeah, we need a scientist to come in and check their M count. I want to do a test. Everything's fake until we check it out.
I'm sorry, John. Do you think it should be based on whether you're a Targaryen, or do you think it should just be some other natural proclivity for dragon riding?
I kept wanting it to be like an attitude kind of thing, and it kind of is with Hammer, right? With the blacksmith guy, they have that whole scene where all the bastards are on that dragon testing platform.
Yeah.
And whatever the dragon they're trying to get, whatever his name is, he like murks a bunch of them. And the reason why he stops and gets claimed by Hammer is because that guy goes, "Okay, fuck it, I'm dead," and screams back at the dragon.
So it's doing the thing that you want, right? It's not. It's not just his Targaryen blood, because a lot of people there had Targaryen blood. I think it's. Or maybe I'm arguing against your own point, but
I mean, they are doing what I want, right? You have to have a personality that the dragon bonds or connects with, I guess, but also you have to be a bastard Targaryen. Like, none of the dragon riders are consciously not noble or even consciously not a Targaryen, but I don't know. That's just me personally putting my own shit onto it.
It's not who you know, it's what you know, which is the opposite of the real world. Go ahead.
When you make the other two small folk perspective characters into dragon riders, they're just no longer small folk, right? They've differentiated themselves from everybody else, and so we're kind of back to the small folk as a body of beings is primarily reactionary and violent and petty.
Well, yeah, like on the one hand, it's like we empathize with the small folk through the lens of like the powerful, not the lens of the small folk. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we see, like again, a lot of this, like so again, to sort of jump on things that are happening. Like you got the beginning. Killing a baby's a bad look. Otto knows it's a bad look, but he knows it's a look he can exploit. So he can exploit the small folks' sympathy to help solidify their position by parading the corpse of the child and his daughter and granddaughter on the streets for all of these people when none of them want that, right? But Otto's like, no, this is going to buy us so much goodwill. We're going to do this, right? And then when they catch the one guy and he gives up Daemon and says it was a rat catcher, but I didn't get his name. He hangs all the rat catchers, right? As like, I got to get vengeance for this. They got to know I'm in charge, which like undoes for Otto like that goodwill that they were getting for the small folk. Because again, like we're not ever seeing, like we as the audience like do get moments of seeing the fact that like, oh, now they're all like, that's really messed up. You murdered all of them. You killed a bunch of innocent people. You know what I mean? And so like this balance of like we have to just keep these people just calm enough to where we can run their lives and not, and they leave us alone.
Yeah.
And like both sides are playing that game. You got what is her name? The spy girl that
Mysaria.
Mysaria spots the twin, saves. Like we'll get into that, but like
we're gonna talk about her.
She begins to play that game as well with sending the food, getting other spies in there, helping spread other information throughout the small folk. The one thing, like the part. I kind of get with John, but I also am like, is Valyrian blood metachlorian space magic? I don't know. Is this like deep lore for Game of Thrones that you have to have this weird ancient connection to be able to be a dragon rider? I'm all for the democratization of that, but also knowing later that what this world apparently thinks makes a good ruler is it being in a wheelchair, being able to tell stories. So, whatever. They're not going to
be able to understand.
Yeah. But what I thought was funny, and what I wished had happened, although I do like that the drunkard, like unclassy dude also gets a dragon. Although that also kind of undercuts like it being like a vibes check, unless that dragon is like a drunk and likes to be unclassy. I don't know.
That also is weird. Yeah.
I like that he got one for like that interaction of the council, but like it did undercut the fact that like Blacksmith Bro, like in choosing to save that one girl's life and like stand up, it's like, okay, so now what is it? Is it just a weird dragon-based vibes check? Like I don't know, but that's also okay. I don't have to understand. We got more to go in, but it was funny to me that it's like, okay, so we follow two dude small folk, and then like we are dealing with like gender ideas and different things, but then like the two people that get elevated by this test are both dudes now, more male dragon riders. I know we do have like a proper lineage. She's out there and finds a wild dragon.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and Aaron. But I was like, I really wanted us to be following both of those so that one of them gets murked and then a brand new, like potentially female character becomes the other dragon rider. You know what I mean? Like we got all of this stuff, and that would have been a nice Game of Thrones thing, where it's like, oh, we followed these guys, and one of them was a classic. Nope, we just spent time, so you'd kind of like him, so we could just take him out, but then we didn't. Instead, it was a setup for Jace to have this existential crisis of like, listen, I know I'm not a legitimate child. Everyone knows I'm not a legitimate child. The one thing I had is that I could ride a dragon. You know what I mean? And so again, we're dealing with that same sort of like these weird, ephemeral, metaphysical structures that are getting in the way of just like existing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jace is constantly feeling weird because like the fact that Rhaenyra, who is queen, is his mom, isn't going to be good enough. Is something that can be contested if ever he's going to try to come to power. And now along with that, he no longer has the fallback card of like, but I can fly a dragon, so maybe everyone will just ignore that, I'm illegitimate, blah, 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 blah. Sort of thing.
Game of Thrones, they say that they're gonna like elect a king now. Like don't they do democracy at the end of the Game of Thrones?
They do democracy of the lords.
God,
not
the
full-on
electoral
democracy.
college. Like they introduced the electoral college in Game of Thrones.
Right. Remember, themes are for 8th grade book reports, guys. It's all about telling stories. Storytellers are the best. They're the coolest people. And if you got the best story, you should be in charge. That's the lesson of Game of Thrones.
I hate that ending. That last God.
I mean, he doesn't necessarily have the best stories. He can literally see through time.
No, but that's what they say.
No, but Tyrion, the two guys through their favorite character, who they also assassinated, Tyrion, is like, and who has a better story than Bran the Broken? And I'm just like, I don't know, like everyone here? They all got thrown out of a window and then just crawled around and like sat with trees and stuff. Like, what are you talking about?
Sat with trees and stuff.
It was so bad.
Trekked to the north.
Bran's not even in an entire season. Sorry, Bran's not even in an entire season of Game of Thrones. They did like season 5. He's not even in because you don't need him for like he's the most dispensable character.
It could have worked. he's a CCTV machine for Sansa at one point where she's like, oh yeah, I could go ask this like God being my brother if my sister's trying to kill me. And then I could figure out, oh no, it's actually Littlefinger that's been manipulating the whole time. The thing he's done since episode 1. Sorry, anyway, we're not talking about how the fact that this show leads into a bad show.
On that, let's talk about the ending a little bit. Did they end the season well? We already talked a little bit about this, but where's the action? And I don't know if you guys are fans of the movie Les Miserables. There's a big moment in the movie and the show. I haven't seen the show, I'm sure.
It's a book. It's a musical. It's like a really good, just like singing musical. No, none of the other stuff. And then it's a really not a very good movie.
I love the movie. In the movie, they sing a song called One Day More, which is basically everybody getting ready for battle. As all the storylines cross over, you hear a little bit of every character singing. You could even say you hear a little bit of everybody's theme as it crosses over from there. So my point being, they do that for this episode of House of the Dragon. There's a moment at the end. They end the season basically on all the storylines kind of coming together, all their themes coming together. They're going off into battle, and then the episode ends. John, was this the right way to end the season?
Yes. There were a lot of moving parts this season, a lot of pieces getting ready to go into action, preparing for this war that they all know is coming, but they don't necessarily all want to happen. It's cool. It's like seeing all of the characters heading towards the culmination of their narratives. It's effective. It's well done. I liked it. I think it would have been weird to end the season on some kind of like opening skirmish or something, like just for the sake of getting some action in there. I don't think it's necessary. I think they did it right the way they did it.
Alex, what if some people are like, it was 8 episodes as opposed to 10, which I don't really like that. This is like kind of started with season 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones, like the shortened season, but really now 8 episodes are really popular. We just talked about The Boys, The Acolyte, each had 8 episode seasons. This has an 8 episode season. I feel like but House of the Dragon season 1 did have 10 episodes. And I feel like some people are like, I feel like we're missing because the structure of Game of Thrones was oftentimes episode 9 was a big battle episode. Episode 10 was kind of the slower. I don't want to say slower, but not as like a big of a spectacle episode, more of like a
the end cap little.
Cap. Yeah, exactly. So some people are kind of like, we're kind of robbed of that episode 9 battle and episode 10, resolution. What say you to that? But again, I maintain I like the ending. I like One Day More from Les Miserables. So what do you think?
I mean, there's a lot of questions in there. So like on the one hand, it's like this whole like a show should be X number of episodes. Da 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 da. It's like like 13. that sort of format is tough because it's like like some of those early Marvel shows on Netflix. It's like they were all trying to hit like a X number of episodes theme, and they just had like fluff and like nonsense in them. You know what I mean? So it's like I think like we should probably be okay if it's like this is the story we have to tell. This is the efficient way to tell it. That turns into 8 episodes. There you go. You know what I mean? As opposed to like hitting this weird arbitrary. Again, it's kind of like you got to be of the nobles to be in charge. It's like a weird metaphysical rule that like doesn't need to exist. That we've just as people who just sort of expect our content to be this same thing are asking, where it's like why would we do that if it's going to lead to like rushed things, fluff, filler, all of that kind of stuff. If what you're trying to do, which especially with this season, is sort of like linger on the edge of this war that like everyone knows is coming and certain people are trying to avoid, then like like John said, to get into like the opening salvo of that at the end of this season, I feel that that has the potential to feel just as off as like getting right to the edge of that. You know what I mean? I understand from like lots of media, you have the big climactic plot type things, whether it's in a movie or a show, you have this sort of like culmination of this build, and you got the denouement where we're all sort of like given a little bit of extra tidbits to munch on and reflect on.
I feel like the what?
The denouement.
What does that mean?
That's like the end cap.
Resolution,
Yeah,
the falling
like
action.
falling
that's
action,
cool.
that kind of thing.
No, I like that. I've never heard that. Is that French?
Probably.
That's cool. Don't just act. Don't throw.
I don't know, man. I picked that word up in. I talked about it when we talked about the structure of film and stuff.
Listen.
Listen.
I didn't go to film school. I went
to films. Yeah, it's a good way to learn about these things. And make some of the best movies that are out there. I watched both Kill Bills recently. My God, so good. Better than House of Dragon. But
so if I can take the fun out of filmmaking for a second, part of the reason a lot of people like 22 episode seasons go from September to May is because it does keep a lot of people employed. You know, we want people to have jobs.
Oh yeah, they're like, again, the structures, the material world we exist in has a lot of problems that lead to a lot of different things. All right, but you're making like a high fantasy show, a very expensive thing, you know, and if you're gonna do this, you know, and especially HBO is owned by some guy that like writes off entire movies for tax things. So it's like, is he going to be like, oh yeah, it's fine if making a 22 episode season of Game of Thrones takes us 3 years to do? No, probably not. He's probably going to rush those animators, and all these people online are going to complain about CGI and the dragons look fake and all this dumb things. You're going to have plot points that are going too fast because like you're trying to rush these people out. Half the scripts are going to be AI generated, then just like given to somebody else so they can't be paid enough for their writing credit, even though they rewrote the whole thing. But AI wrote the first draft, so they're the technical writers, so you don't have to pay them as much. So like, yeah, there's a lot of really messed up stuff we do under capitalism and how we make this type of art that goes into it. What I'm trying to say is I think deciding to make your season 8 episodes and not get to the war that will probably be a big thing in the next season is fine. Everyone got a nice little character arc, you know. We got their things. We had sort of the like, again, like the the bookends of the Rhaenyra Alicent thing happening. That sort of climactic plot point where Alicent finally comes back and is like, look, you show up there, we'll probably ring the bells, so that can be a sign of surrender that we retcon right now. And you can come in and everything will be fine. And Rhaenyra's like, you know, if we do this, we gotta kill your kid. Like, this just has to happen. Are you willing to go that far? Are you actually willing to like step up for what it's going to take to do peace? And I don't remember if we got a resolution to that.
I think she said yes, right? I think she like nod like with tears.
Yeah. But like, yeah. So it's like that loose kind of like, oh, but damn, then, wild.
I love it just seeing the car crash about to happen though. It's like it's like he's not there, and also like just all these different. It's so good. And what would be so funny? Could you imagine? You mentioned the bells, and I just thought, what if she gets there, rings the bells, everything goes according to plan, but just the end of season 8 happens just again. She's like, I'm just gonna fucking kill her, and it's like, no,
I hate bells. I am now totally crazy. I go against all of the principles I had.
It's like shot the same exact way, and it's like you fucked up again.
Because right now, at the very end, after Daenerys has had power forever, it's still a coin toss, and she's gonna be crazy. They say the gods flip a coin whenever a Targaryen is born. And there's no signs, there's no warning. The coin is in the air until it comes down that, yes, they are a murdering bastard or they've died. That's the only way you know. A Targaryen can only be good if they're already dead and they didn't turn into a murdering bastard. Outside of that, it's a toss-up, man. We're never gonna know. Depending on, no matter what actions they took, no matter how hard they tried for these things, they're going to show up to this new area. They're going to be pissed at their boyfriend, who's like the hometown hero, is more popular in their hometown than she is. And she's going to slowly begin to decide, because, you know, she's getting jealous of his popularity, that like, maybe I got to reign through fear, even though I've never wanted to do that. Tyrion's going to be like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's do that. Bells mean surrender and all this stuff. And then she's going to go over there. Her friend's head's going to get cut off, and she's still not going to go crazy. She's going to forget about dragon stuff. They're going to kill one dragon in the air. She's still not going to go crazy, but then at the very end, she's just going to look at the thing and for some reason have this deep, profound connection to this and be really upset and be like, you know what? Actually, yeah, I do want to just murder everyone. Absolutely everyone. Everyone in the whole world. And then I'm going to dress like a Nazi. I'm going to have Nazi stuff in the background. And then we're going to have to be so sad that my boyfriend, who's a hometown hero of the North, is going to have to take me out like Old Yeller and this whole thing. And then my dragon's going to burn the symbolism of the whole show. And then a guy that everybody liked, who's like brain just melted out of his face by season 6, is going to give a speech that is just like, hey, man, broken people have the best stories. He should be in charge.
God damn. was good. I did like they set up. There's a moment where Rhaenyra's talking to the small folk, and she's like, "We're gonna do it peacefully, like if we can." And then you hear in the background, because I have subtitles on, it says "dragon nearby roar" or like growls or something. And I was like, "That's just excellent filmmaking. That's way better setup than any like that I can." And I watched Game of Thrones semi recently, so like I feel like they're setting up Rhaenyra like being a coin toss almost more than they ever set up Daenerys, other than maybe 2 episodes ahead of the turn. Like, anyway, it would be very funny if they just shoot it the exact same way and she just kills it the exact same way.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to wrap up, guys. I really liked this season of Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones franchise spinoff called House of the Dragon season 2. I enjoyed it.
In the Game of Thrones series of shows.
It's in the Game of Thrones
network. Yeah. Network of podcasts.
I like it. I had is Rhaenyra a virtuous character as my last thing that I wanted to interrogate. I don't think we really need to. I also have where's Otto written down. I don't know if you guys.
He's in a cage.
Quickly touch on one of those things. John,
Otto's in a cage.
Okay. And
probably
John,
for pretending to be Shakespeare.
John, yes or no? Is Rhaenyra a virtuous character? Inherently, yes.
Rhaenyra's the queen.
The queen, our protagonist.
More virtuous than most Alicent? Everybody else in the show. I mean, she's been
no. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, you're saying yes, Alex. Yes or no?
You know, and Cole says, Sam, that everybody's fucked.
I'm not agreeing with Cole. I'm just saying he's a very like I believe how he got there.
I know, but I'm saying like Rhaenyra is good, better than most everybody else. But you know what? It's hard to unify a nation of peoples against a coming threat when you don't trust those peoples with the knowledge of said threat. You're just like, I have to unify the land so that we can stop winter. But then you don't tell anybody that that's what's happening or what you're doing. And so instead you're just like, everybody give me all your sheep to feed my dragons.
Now, like John, I don't know. The way you said it there made me think of like Plato's Republic and like the noble lie. And it's like, is this really like, because also my biggest problem with Game of Thrones, like having not read like much of any of the books and having watched a terrible show, it's like the White Walkers just kept being this like weird thing of like, hey man, it's gonna be cool, but like we're gonna be distracted from like full seasons where we just at the very end are like, remember, there's these monsters out there.
Politics more.
Like, there's monsters out here, right? But I just mean like hypothetically, you're telling this big overarching story where there's this existential threat, you know, and then if you look at it a metaphor for like global warming, the politics of it, getting in the way of us trying to deal with it. But also it's a high fantasy show, so like you want to battle. I was just like, I don't know of any possible way that this could ever be cathartic and satisfying, because like we've done nothing but like ignore it and tease it for so long, and you can only hype so much before it's become so big in everyone else's minds that whatever they put on screen is going to be a letdown. Which is now making me think that like this whole like, oh, we got to keep this secret and we got to hold on to power because we're the only ones that can possibly stop this existential threat, the Song of Ice and Fire. It's like, one, like in the world, we know that is true, but we also know it's very easy. You just got to jump off the right rafter with the right knife and just poke him, and then it's fine. Even if you have no thematic connection to this character whatsoever.
Game of Thrones season 8.
Yeah. But sorry, I keep dunking on it. We'll move on. But I also was thinking it's like, but then it just feels like, well, yeah, but it would be interesting to see like them say that, but then also like because it's still far enough off to where it's like grandchildren. It's like, is this just another form of bullshit myth making to hold on to power? You know what I mean? To still suppress, to still have like a central
that's my
figurehead of power is like this. We are the people that have to be in charge because only our bloodline can be here to wield the weapons to stave off extinction, so it is wild and interesting.
Well, I think in Rhaenyra's heart of hearts, if you were to get the truth out of her, what strives her to be the queen is number one, personal ambition. Number two, her dad chose her. Number three, the Song of Ice and Fire. Not really like she may say it's the Song of Ice and Fire, or I'm doing this out of virtue, which is my answer to the virtuous question. No, she's not, because really everybody's doing this out of, just like Alicent, to a degree, was like, I had some plausible deniability. I think whatever he said, whatever. But everybody just wants power at the end of the day, and that's what it is. Except for maybe we'll see if Daemon is actually having that's what I'm so curious to see in season 3 is Daemon, how he acts, because this whole season, first 2 seasons, you could say, were about what's he going to do, and he firmly pledges his allegiance to Rhaenyra because of the Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm curious if he's going to maintain that throughout the rest of the series. We only got 2 seasons left.
It will be interesting because again, like the whole is she virtuous, is she not, and it's like everyone, you know what I mean? Like again, like this show.
Nobody is.
Well, it's way more like they're all trapped by a bunch of structures that they didn't have a say in, that they're having to react to, and unable to just be like, hey, should we participate in these structures, or should we find other ways? You have the material conditions of like the Riverlands lords and stuff that Daemon has to contend with. He can't just come in and flex that he's the king and get everyone to unite behind him. He's got to play this game. There's all of these, keys to power, things going on, resources, bad blood between other things, so like all of this needs to be navigated. And I think the show is saying it's like, it is near impossible to be a truly virtuous character within all of this other gunk and muck that comes into the thing. You just like, you can't know whether your actions will be good or not until later. You just have to act like in the way that you think is best and hope for the best, So
no one stays good in this world.
All right, Hack Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
Hack Snyder?
Zack Snyder. I love how I've already retconned. I keep forgetting that where we're at in the storyline with Zack Snyder. I forgot. I had to in my Deadpool and Wolverine episode, which is doing great numbers. I had to explain that I do love Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder's Justice League, but then I currently hate him because of Rebel Moon, the worst movie
tough,
ever.
Man. It's hard out in the world. Would you say Zack Snyder is virtuous?
Yes, up until yes.
All right.
What say you, John? As let's wrap this up. House of the Dragon season 2. Did you like it?
Yeah, it's good.
I liked it a lot. I recommend people see it. Alex, did you like House of the Dragon season 2? I liked this season.
I did. Again, like the funniest parts are just where I would get little reminders of where it's going, and that leading into Game of Thrones, and that being bad, and I'd be like, man, I get, it's funny. I really like what the show's doing. I'm having a good time, but
well, considering, it would be better if it led into a great show, but considering it's a big IP, they're going to make spinoffs to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to lead into a bad show, no matter what.
This is the world we're living in.
This is the world we're living in, and in that world, I think they did a pretty damn good job.
I've enjoyed it. I recommend it. Check it out. Listen to podcasts, and also watch Mission Impossible.
They're
real good.
If you want to hear more from myself, John Lein, Alex McKellar, we did a whole series of bonus podcasts, but particularly the Mission Matinee podcast is available on the Film Fan Club Show's podcast feed on Apple and Spotify. I want to thank John Lein, Alex McKellar. Thank you guys so much for joining the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Jinx. You owe me a Coke.
All right, that's our show. I'd like to thank Scott Innes, Alex McKellar, and John Lein for joining the show this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about Alien Romulus. We got a very special guest lined up for that episode, guys, so make sure you're subscribed to the Film Fan Club on YouTube and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. The Film Fan Club show is available on Apple, Spotify, a whole lot more. I'm Sam Carrico. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.